Alright, so in this video, I am going to cover Dropbox on your phone. Okay, now I know every phone is slightly different, but overall, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It just might like look a little different or something like that. But what you're going to want to do is download the Dropbox app on your phone. And once you have that, obviously log in, okay, and then bring it up. And now when you go, there we go. When you first like bring up your Dropbox, you've got like your main Dropbox, and that you can put whatever you want within it. I highly recommend right off the bat being very organized. Okay, so if you want to have a personal folder for personal things, if you want to have a whatever, you know what I mean, but like create those different ones. Okay, it's really important, especially over time. A lot of times people just want to like throw whatever like just in that main area, and then you end up like excuse me, with a complete disaster and then a bunch of time organizing at that point. So just avoid that right off the bat. Okay, so I have, let's see here, tattoos and drawings folder, and in here I have a folder for every single client or client like group. Okay, because sometimes you're meeting some clients for the first time and there's four of them coming together, whatever. Okay, so but each of those basically has its own folder. Now within each folder, oh, actually I always name the folder their excuse me, the name in which they contacted me by. So if it was like through the online booking form or whatever that name is showing there, that is what I grab. Whatever the name is on Business Suite, like with Facebook and Instagram, that's what I grab, until I have their actual name, like through paperwork. Because sometimes names will come in, like on Instagram especially. Okay, like when they write through Business Suite, you're gonna see like a nickname or a business name or whatever, whatever their like handle is essentially. So that's what I do at first, but then as soon as I have their actual information, I change that name. Now, over time, sometimes people change their preferred name. Sometimes they transition. Sometimes they get married or they get divorced or whatever the case may be. Okay, so when that happens, I always add that into that folder name. Okay, I edit that folder name. I make sure that their preferred name is first, but I like to keep the previous names as well, because when searching for files, searching on my calendar, things like that, you want to make sure you've got all the series of the names, because when they booked with you 5 years ago and their name was different, how are you going to go back and look that up on the calendar? And I know you might think like, why would I need that? Well, trust me, I have needed to go back on that calendar. I couldn't even tell you how many times, okay? And if I don't have that name, I can't properly search, okay? So just make sure your naming structure is the same across the board, okay? It's gonna set you up for success. Now within each folder, okay, um, each one is a little bit different, because some people, they just want a smaller tattoo. It's not going to be this full in-depth consultation. There aren't going to be a ton of reference photos. I don't necessarily need a bunch of photos of the client themselves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Tim. Tim came in for a back piece. Okay, now his obviously was larger, and it involved everything. It involved the photo references from him. It involved the photos of him, all of my drawings, and then I always have a client references and research too. So or you can put that into two separate folders. It doesn't matter. But all the references they send, I automatically grab, download them, put them in there. Okay. And then the research part is my own research. So any tattoo that I do, if they're telling me about something, okay, at a consultation, this, I don't know, this Norse Viking that did this and this and whatever, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to research documentaries about that, and that Norse Viking. I am going to look up articles, I'm going to look up images, I'm going to look up all kinds of things, because this is obviously meaningful to the client. So I need to know as much as I possibly can, okay? And that way, when you're coming up with your drawing, you're including the things that truly represent that Norse Viking or whatever the material is, okay? You never want to just, like, I don't know, just have that consultation and not do your research, okay? Always, always, always do your research. It's very, very important. And then on top of that, you have something to talk to that client about as well, okay? Beyond the, the normal, what do you do? Do you have any kids? That kind of stuff, like getting to know them personally. But then you can show when you're talking to that client, you're talking about the piece and, oh, that was so cool. I did this research on, this Norse Viking. I didn't realize, that he did X, Y, and Z. That's so awesome, or whatever. You know what I mean? Show that you care, and that is a great way to show that, is by doing your research. So anyway, like I said, you always want to have that client references and research. And I just throw everything into there, okay? If you, like I said, if you want to split it up into two, so you have the actual client references and then your own research in a separate, that's fine too. I've done it both ways, okay? On this one, I had a very clear understanding of what he wanted through our consultation, and he sent really good references, and he kind of like had a good visual in his head. So that was why I put them together. Then I've got, usually in this main folder, I put in my PSD folder. That's Photoshop. So if you don't use Photoshop, then it would be a Procreate file instead, okay? Or if you use both, you'd want those main editing files kind of in that main folder. Or at least for that piece, because here's the thing, so he's booked with me, not this summer, next summer, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these, okay, because this was all for one piece, alright? So I'm going to grab all of those and hit these three dots in the upper right. Boom. I'm going to move them. And then I can go through my folder hierarchy, or I can just search for Tim again. Maybe. There he is. Okay. So I'll click on his folder. I'm going to add a folder that's in the upper right hand corner, that little folder plus icon. And I'm going to have that be back piece cover up M&M. So that way I've got oh man, Stephen King, can't leave him out now. That way I've got, still have all that stuff in there. So I'm going to create that, and then I'm going to hit that lower right icon, and then they move to there. Okay, so now you can see it in the background there. It's moving everything. So that is a folder for that piece. Now his upcoming one, what I'll do is I will just create a new folder, excuse me, and I will put, oops, bottom right, sorry, that's to create a folder. So this will be the summer 2027 piece, alright, till I know what it is. And then right there, when I have my consultation with him, I can go ahead and just upload everything right in there. I'll create my separate folders, whatever, but that's kind of how that works. So back to the back piece. So I've got my main editing file. I've got, ignore the new folder that just randomly happened. I've got, Eminem's arm. That was something that he later added in. Because he wasn't sure if I'd be able to do Eminem's tattoos because his arm showed in the piece that I was tattooing on him. So he sent me those as well, and I was able to add that. So that's awesome. But that was just that additional folder because that was beyond the consultation. We were already into the tattooing for a bit and all that good stuff. Then I have the consultation. Okay, so this consultation I did on paper. Now, there are some things that I always get at a consultation. Now, you can have a little book. I like to have my little physical book. It's really nice. I can put all my notes. I can ask all my questions. I can put in my measurements. I can put in a little map. The side of the body, the whatever, and then the number of sessions that this is going to take, or the range of sessions. Okay, I like to do a range because if it's someone I haven't tattooed, or if I usually do fine line in this person and now they're going for some big bold color, if they could sit for 4 to 6 hours at a time with the fine line, it doesn't mean that they can sit for 4 to 6 hours on the big bold color. Maybe they can, but I would rather err on the side of caution and let them know ahead of time. Okay, so I think that we could do this in 4 sessions, but I would rather put 6 on the books to ensure that we have enough appointments. But I want to give you that range because if we need that full 6, I don't want you to expect, or I don't want you to not be prepared for the money or the time, that's associated with that. Okay. I always, ask the client about their availability, and then I ask if there's a budget that they're trying to stay within. Doesn't mean that I can stay within their budget, but I always do my best to be upfront and honest. Okay, so if they're telling me they want this piece and they're saying they have $2,000 as a max budget, and I can stay if I think it's going to be less than that. Oh no, that'll only be probably 1,000 to 1,500, or oh no, that's going to be more like 4,000 to 6,000. Then you can let them know that. Okay, but I also asked for that budget because you can draw things a different way. You can place things a different way. You can lose some detail, things like that. So I always like to ask that question. Okay. Let's see here. Now, what I did is a couple years ago, I started switching to a Word document for my consultations, and I really liked that method because then I can just drag and drop my images over, and it I don't know, it's just a little bit cleaner because my handwriting isn't the best when I'm doing a consultation sometimes. So I still have my book, and I always have my book at the shop because technology can fail at any point. Okay, so I like to have that physical book. But I really like, especially with Dropbox, having that digital file. So I did switch to that. Actually, I'll talk about that in a minute because I want to talk about the rest of these folders real quick. So at every consultation, I always take photos, and I make sure I get each angle, even if it's an angle that I don't need necessarily, okay? But it's really important to get that, all right? For example, in Tim's, I got obviously straight on for the back. I got an angled side. I got an upper clear view of what it is I need to cover. Anytime I'm doing a cover up, I always, ask, may I touch the area, and feel it to see the amount of scar tissue or what I'm working with. Okay. So he had a lot of scar tissue. I knew it would have to be very, very dark in that area, and it was thick and just kind of nasty, honestly. So, it was pretty raised, but yeah. So that's just why you want to do that, and then I always save those to that client photos folder. Then I've got, let's see, client references and research, drawings. So anytime that I would work on that Photoshop file, I would save it. So this one I did mostly on the computer because we were working with real images. Okay, so like here I'm like laying out different things, and zooming in on shit, and a lot of the time what I will do is I will draw on like tracing paper. I like tracing paper a lot because you can print out photos and overlap them, and then you can draw over them, which is really nice. Or like if it's a different type of thing, not like this back piece, then I'll just like draw. If I'm doing a raven, maybe I'll draw the raven head, and then I'll draw raven wings a couple different ways, and the body and the angle and things like that, and then I'll kind of put those together, but I will put a piece of tracing paper over it and put it together that way, like it's just, I don't know, I like that more personally. I know you can do that on the computer. I'm more of a hand drawer. That's just the way I've always been. So anyway, that's just personal preference. But then you've got what did I do for layouts? Oh, this was because he sent me specific photos that he wanted. Oh yeah, of like his kid and things like that. So I was trying to figure out different layouts of everything together. I don't always have a layouts folder. That one though I did. And then of course I've got my stencils. You always want to keep your stencils in a folder with clients, not necessarily for like a big back piece and stuff, or like something that you're only going to do on that one person, but like people that get smaller tattoos, even medium and larger ones, like their kid will come in years down the road and my dad passed away and I really want his tattoo, and you're the one that did it, and and then you've got it. You can go back to their dad's folder and you literally have that fucking stencil like spot on. Okay, so anyway, so then I've got the stencil folder, and that's about it. So what I would recommend, okay, just having in your Dropbox, okay, so this is my tattoo and drawing folder. I would recommend creating a folder. So this would be, just to say, client, and we're gonna create another folder, and you can do that like large create folder option, or in the lower right there's also that plus sign, and that will let you do that as well. Okay, so we're gonna have consultation within it. Okay, now we're going to go back one level to the main client. That's in that upper left. Okay, then we want to have client photos. So that's where you're going to upload the photos of the client. Then we're going to have stencils. Drawings. Client references. And that can be client references and research, or you can do client references and then a separate folder that is research. Okay, so consultation, client photos, stencils, drawings, client references, research. I think that is it. Okay. And then, whenever you get a new client, just search for that client folder, okay, which came up right there up top. Hit the three dots to the right and hit duplicate. So then all you have to do is change that, the name of the folder client to that client's name, and then you've got all those folders in there and you can add to it. Makes your life easy, saves you time. Okay, now the other thing that I started talking about was, let's see here, when I switched over to doing a digital versus all the consultations in a physical book. I'm trying to think of a client's name right now. Son of a bitch. I'm trying to think of one that I did that actual digital one with here. I'm gonna pause that. Okay, so Jacob. Jacob Mikowski. Oops. Hold on. Jacob. That's weird. My foot number. Refreshed. That's so strange because on my computer I've got all the separate folders. Anyway, it's not like a big ordeal. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the different folders in here. Same thing, got my client photos, stencils, drawing, client references, and consultation. Now this was one of the ones that I did. The digital. So then you've just got this, and you can, like I said, you can pull things over, okay? And put in whatever you need for a consultation. Oh, jeez. Let's see. Now I created a really cool one that had even more information right here, and I will share this with you guys. It's really nice because it's got all the information. Okay, once I switch to this, it is a much better system overall, and it gets everything that you possibly need, okay, at that consultation. And it's a little bit more streamlined, okay? So you know, like, how that person has been contacting, or if it was multiple methods, because there's a lot of clients that ends up being multiple. So just always select those. If you guys want, I can make a online version of this too, so you could just go right to the website, fill it out, and then it emails in. So then you can just copy and paste the information. It's up to you. Right now this is just a Word doc or PDF. I can send both over, but let me know if you do want a fillable form, because that would be really nice to be able to just do it right from your tablet or phone or whatever. But yeah, so, and I tried to block things out, so you've got like your placement and measurements, which side of the body, the overall height, length, width, but then also a top, middle, lower. So like when you're working on sleeves or legs or whatever, like you can get, obviously the size is different from top to bottom. So, and then any extra notes or whatever, your design and concept, okay? And it's really important to always ask this at a consultation. What does the piece mean to you, okay? Along with what elements do you want to include, but then what do you not want to include? So, for example, I get a lot of people that want floral, okay? So what flowers do you really want to include, or what plants do you want to include, or whatever, But then after they say that, what do you not want to include? Because sometimes you need a little filler, you need something a little different for flow or whatever. If they have certain things that for certain plants that they do not like, you want to know that because you don't want to include that. That will save you time in the future by asking a simple question. Style for the piece, color, or black and gray color, limited color when they just want like pops, or if they're undecided. Again, extra notes if you want. And then here, references, and then little check boxes. So did you save them to your Dropbox? So that way you're always on top of things, okay? Oh, like I said before, availability. Are there certain days or times that this person's available? Always check that because, or always ask them that, because there's times where you have somebody not show and you can be like, oh, I remember this person is always available on Wednesdays. So let me see if they happen to be free. Okay. Budget for the piece, like I said, it's an important thing to ask. Okay, you want to be very upfront about your pricing, the way you are going to structure this out, and plan it and all of that. Okay, and then after you come up with this plan, okay, before they even go, set up sessions. Okay, if you said 4 to 6 5-hour sessions and they're like, yeah, and they're available on whatever Mondays and Saturdays, okay, look at your calendar for the next upcoming months. Make sure you've got that time in between to make sure they are fully healed, but get them on the calendar. And while you're putting those up, be writing a card, on your little business card, the dates for them there, and and get the deposit right then. Okay, what I usually do with multiple sessions is I do one or more deposits. So sometimes I'll just do one, and then I let them know verbally, as long as you show up to every appointment on time, I'll just keep moving that deposit forward. Okay, but if you do not show up, or you show up too late, or whatever, you will lose that deposit and need to pay another one to keep your future appointments on my books. Okay, some people, they'll want to prepay for parts of the tattoo. They'll want to put $1,000 down or whatever. You can do that, absolutely. Or you could do like 3 deposits, or just it's up to you. I'm just letting you know what I do. And I also always charge them that custom artwork fee that day as well. Don't start drawing until you have that fee. It's going to save you heartache in the future. Okay, and let them know when they pay that artwork fee that you're going to come up with the drawing for them or whatever. But if there's things that they don't like, let's kind of go back and forth a little bit and find out exactly what you don't like about it, what you do like about it, and then I can revise it. Okay, on the website it states that with custom artwork that we will do 1 or 2 revisions for free, but then we charge that fee again. Okay, because you'll get people that just, they're fucking time suckers, and this is your job. Okay, so obviously it's up to you, but treat it like a job. You're spending time doing this. I have spent weeks and weeks on some people's drawings, and in the past I had done that without a decent artwork fee, or without a fee at all, and went back and forth and back and forth. I mean, I spent hours and hours that I never got paid for. You know what I mean? And that's part of tattooing. But if you have this nice flow, if you're treating this very sincere and you are verbalizing all this, to the client, then they have a full understanding of every part of this, every component of it, and you can feel good about, charging for your art, charging for your time, things like that, okay? And it's going to make clients happier in the future, okay? Because they know what to expect at all times, okay? And then just at the bottom here, I did add in one little section too for you guys. That's client or make sure that you kind of go through that and just check it. Okay. Yes, I asked this. Yes, I have the answer to this. Yes, that way again, it's going to avoid you having to reach out in the future with like, what did we say? Especially once you get booked out. That was a thing that I had to do, especially, once I got booked 1 year in advance, that was, I'd have these consultations and I'm not going to see that client for a year. And then I reached 2 years in advance. I'm not going to see those clients for 2 years. So that consultation I have today, I'm not going to remember that over those 2 years. So you want to be excessively organized, okay, so that you can come back to this and like, bam, I remember this whole consultation, I remember this person, I've got my photos, I've got my things, I got all my notes. So anyway, that is what I recommend. And that is also, sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent, but that is Dropbox on your phone. And then you can easily, like I said, you can just look up Dropbox, bam, you've got all your stuff right there. And you don't have to, you can search easily, you can organize easily, you can edit easily from any of your devices. All right, so I hope this helps, and I will talk to you soon.